What is going on, everyone? It is Luca here from RaptorsNation.com of the Medium Large Sports Network. Hope you're all doing well. We got a lot to talk about in this video. Gonna waste no time. Let's get right into it. So we know the latest from Scottie Barnes, as Scottie Barnes is expected to miss several weeks due to a right ankle sprain. This was according to Shams. The injury happened, of course, during the third quarter of Monday night's game against the New York Knicks when Karl Anthony Towns came down on Barnes's foot. So I thought it was going to be a lot worse initially. When watching the injury, you saw Barnes was in clear discomfort. So this is better than what I expected. And the Raptors did announce that Barnes will be reevaluated in 1 week per TSN's Josh Lewenberg. But several weeks is still the timeline for Barnes. So we don't know what that means. Of course, these things can linger. The other part of it, are the Raptors necessarily going to rush Barnes back? We'll get into their outlook after this injury in just a moment here. But you look at what this means to both sides. Like for Barnes, it's another huge setback. And this was a player who had been playing his best basketball, arguably. Like he was just turning it up a notch, returning to that all-star form, putting up career best numbers, and he had just returned from an orbital fracture that had him sidelined for 11 games. So now he's back on the shelf, and for Barnes, this ruins his chances at the All-NBA team. Now look, it was already going to be a stretch for Barnes to make the All-NBA team, but because he's now expected to miss several weeks, it's in all likelihood going to make him ineligible for that Supermax contract extension, because under the NBA's new collective bargaining agreement, players must appear in at least 65 games to qualify for the All-NBA honors. So Barnes can only miss 7 more games without losing that eligibility. I doubt Barnes is going to return before that mark. So with his current injury, it's unlikely he's going to meet that threshold. So it ends his chance at a Supermax, which costs him a potential $45 million. So that is big for Barnes. Obviously, losing that money, that potential money due to injury, that's not sitting well with him. You look at now what this means for the Raptors. His absence, it leaves a big hole in this rotation, right? Like this is a team that had been decimated with injuries. Then it looked like they were starting to get guys back. It looked like we were finally going to see the starting 5 play together, see even barbecue play together. Like we have had such a small sample size. They have not all 3 of them played together this season. So it looked like things were starting to come around with the Raptors, but now Barnes goes down. We don't know when he's going to be back. And then, the team is still dealing with a series of injuries. Emmanuel Quickley dealing with that elbow. He had returned initially from his opening night injury. Then he got injured again. No timeline for his return. And then, of course, Bruce Brown remains out as he continues to recover from knee surgery. And again, this is big because prior to this injury, Barnes had been putting up solid numbers, like 20.6 points, 8.4 rebounds, 7.4 assists per game. He was shooting at 46.1% from the field. So definitely a major setback. And you hope for Scottie, the road to recovery officially begins now. He can come back, remain healthy, and return to all-star form, because you got to look at it. This is the second major injury of Barnes this season, and the third if you go back to what caused him to miss the remainder of last season when he broke his hand against the Warriors. So for Barnes, you just hope this doesn't become a common theme where he's sidelined, and hopefully this is the last of the injuries and he comes back and he can return to playing like an all-star for this team. From the player perspective, it definitely sucks. But for the team perspective, this could essentially be a blessing in disguise because it's not something severe, because Barnes is now going to be sidelined for the next little bit. I think for the Raptors, it makes their direction clearer than ever. This team was simply too good to tank with Scottie Barnes in the lineup. Without Scottie Barnes, that's an entirely different story, because the proof is right there. The Raptors have gone 2-9 without Barnes so far this season. And you look at the upcoming schedule for this team, it's going to determine a lot when it comes to the season trajectory for the Raptors. And 19 of the Raptors' next 20 matchups are against teams currently in a playoff play-in spot. So it's not going to get any easier for this team. They're on a 3-game losing streak. So it's going to be an uphill battle without Barnes. We see how they look with him compared to how they look without him. It's a drastic difference. I think the Raptors' pathway here is absolutely clear. I mean, it should be absolutely clear. For starters, you don't rush Scottie Barnes back. Hell, you don't even rush Emmanuel Quickley back. You let those guys take as much time as they need, especially Barnes. Because this is a second injury in a few months, like, there is no need to rush him back. You want to make sure he is 1,000% okay before he steps back onto that court. Play the rookies. This is a developmental season. Play the rookies. It's going to get ugly, but you got to go through those bumps and bruises. So unleash the young guys even more. And this team, they gotta be sellers at the deadline because their focus should solely be on the draft. Like, this is it. Before, yeah, you could contemplate, this team's too good to tank. They're going to be a playing team with Scottie. IQ's coming back. With Scottie out of the equation now, it's a no-brainer. The Raptors just have to focus on the draft. I mean, they don't even have to do much tanking because this team isn't good without Scottie Barnes. But because how things have shaken up, this team's got to fully commit to just playing this thing out and positioning themselves as best as they can for the NBA draft lottery, because that's what it comes down to. There is no need to rush guys back. There is no need to get into the play. And playing for what? As Masai infamously said. So I feel like doing that just is a huge setback to what this organization is trying to do big picture. So yeah, it's going to suck, watching this team lose a bunch. You get flashbacks to how last season ended, but really, like, the Raptors have to follow that plan if they want to set themselves up for future success. So then you get into, okay, like, Scottie's going to be out. This team's already going to be bad. How can you get even worse? And, you look at the deadline, big name is Jakob Poeltl, who's already come up a ton of what the Raptors should do with him. Like, I think it's a foregone conclusion. The team is going to try to move Bruce Brown, and hopefully he can come back soon to kind of restore some of that lost value. Bruce Shea is another name. I mean, he's out of the rotation. I don't know what you're going to get for him, but those two are not big talking points. Like, it's pretty obvious if the Raptors have deals for those guys, they're going to pursue them. The big one is Poeltl, because Poeltl does make this team still somewhat competitive without Scottie Barnes. We've seen him in games with Poeltl and RJ playing as well as they have as a duo and even win some. And, you look at Poeltl, I know a lot of fans don't want to see him go, but again, you got to think big picture. I know you look at it, he's playing the best basketball of his career, and he does give the Raptors a center that they have lacked in quite some time, but Poeltl just doesn't make sense right now with what this team is trying to do. He doesn't make sense with this timeline. Like, right now, you add Jakob Poeltl as a starter to some contending teams that need a big, like, that team could possibly do some damage. There is no use just having him, be a part of your tank and waste away what you could have potentially got for him when his value is at his highest right now. Like, Poeltl's value is never going to get higher than this. Like, look at his numbers. They're going to continue to inflate with Barnes out. You got to cash in on Poeltl. And what makes more sense to this team is draft capital, first-round picks. And if the Raptors get a deal for Poeltl that includes a first-round pick, you got to do it, because first-round picks is what matters to this team right now. They're not looking to contend this season, not even next. They're putting themselves in the best position where they can be a juggernaut. They can be an elite team. I don't want to even mention OKC, but hey, they can be the next team on the rise that did it right, got the draft picks they need and made the right moves. And now, look at OKC. They're laughing, and they're going to be a force for years to come. So the Raptors don't want to potentially miss out on that by just holding on to Poeltl. And I know if you lose him, you have a big hole at center. But again, right now, your main focus for this team is just to acquire as much talent as you can and develop these young guys to see what you actually have in them. Like, you're not thinking about, okay, this guy makes me competitive so I could get a play-in playoff spot. Because the Raptors aren't there yet, especially when Scottie Barnes out of the equation. They still have a long way to go. So the Raptors got to be sellers, in my opinion. They got to see what they could get for Pirtle. They got to trade Bruce Brown. Boucher, sure, if you could get, a second rounder for him or two, that would be great. But the Raptors got to go for the draft. There is no use trying to save this season. This injury is a blessing in disguise. Don't rush Scottie or IQ back. I know it sucks because you want to see what you have in these guys, but I mean, there was a lot of back and forth about what the Raptors were going to do. Were they going to be bad enough? Were they going to, go for the plan? But with Scottie out of the equation, with the schedule getting pretty tough or remaining tough over the next little bit, it's inevitable that the Raptors are going to do a lot of losing, and they should just commit to that. They should just fully embrace this thing and try to land a top 5 pick in the draft, because you add a top 5 talent to these guys, then you're cooking. Then you have a lot of flexibility and leverage, and you can figure out what you're going to do about center later on. But for right now, you care more about draft capital, and you care more about a top 5 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. So that is just my take on this. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Are you going full-blown sale mode? Are you trading Jakob Poeltl? And how do you think the Raptors are going to proceed from here on out? And like I said, from the player side of it, Scottie Barnes, I hope he can get back to full health. And I hope this is the last of the injuries for him, because you definitely don't want your star player, your franchise player, to continue to go through this up and down of having these setbacks, because it's hard. Like, he did a phenomenal job getting back from that orbital fracture, but you keep having these setbacks where you're sidelined and then you play and then you're silent again. It really hurts your overall momentum. So hopefully this is the last of it, and hopefully the Raptors can cash in, capitalize on it, and they are just grooving after this period going into next season and beyond. But guys, let me know your thoughts. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. That is it for me. It's Luke signing off. Thanks so much for watching. I will catch you all again in the next one.